Rick Delaney, District 7.
Dennis Pollock, District 6.
Jay Catanaw, District 5.
Jeff Penscover, District 4.
Justin Pluis, District 3.
Dean Veneman, District 2.
Ryan Austin, District 1.
Thank you. Item 2 is discuss a referral from Alderperson Catanaw to create an ordinance banning the addition of fluoride to the city water supply. So this is from myself. There's a lot to this. I included a study in the referral. I hope everyone got a chance to read that. Usually I would just speak to things freely as they come through, but because there's so much to this, I figured I'd put it all down, my words down today, and I'll give this speech here. Today I wanted to bring to your attention new and growing concerns about the fluoridation of municipal water supply. For decades, water fluoridation has been promoted as a public health measure to reduce tooth decay. However, in recent studies, including a Harvard meta-analysis and the National Institutes of Health-funded research, have raised serious questions about fluoride's impact on human health, particularly its link to reduced IQ in children and neurodevelopmental issues. Additionally, a lawsuit from a Wisconsin mom against the EPA has brought forward scientific evidence suggesting that fluoride is more harmful than previously understood. She won the case, and the federal judge ordered the EPA to reassess the risks associated with fluoride in drinking water. Meanwhile, cities across Wisconsin and the country have rejected or removed fluoride after reviewing similar concerns. Also to be noted, countries in Western Europe have also banned fluoride in their water for decades. It's important to recognize that the fluoride added to our water is not pharmaceutical grade, but rather an industrial byproduct. This raises further questions about financial incentives and the ethics of mass medication without individual consent. We must acknowledge that fluoride is not just a public health issue, it is a multi-billion-dollar industry with powerful interests behind it. The American Dental Association, major fertilizer manufacturers, and even parts of the pharmaceutical industry have a vested financial interest in keeping fluoride in our water. These organizations spend millions lobbying at local, state, and federal levels, funding studies that support fluoridation while downplaying or discrediting research that suggests harms. When communities question fluoride, they often face well-funded campaigns aimed against doing so. Expect to hear from dental associations, public health officials, and industry-backed groups telling us this is a settled issue. Expect media campaigns warning that removing fluoride will lead to a rise in cavities, but also expect them to avoid discussing fluoride's potential neurotoxicity, its industrial origins, and the growing number of scientists calling for a reevaluation. There's no reason residents outside of city limits should have a choice to fluoridate their water, but our residents do not, based on a decision made by the city a long time ago before they had the information we do now. Our residents deserve policies based on the most up-to-date research, not industry influence. It's time we put the residents' choice first and their health. And with that, we're going to open it up to discussion. I think first we'll do the council and the committee, and then we'll go to the public. Being that there's a large turnout today, this is not a public hearing, but we'll allot for 2 minutes per speaker. And then if a council member or committee member has questions for you, we'll allow that as well, up to 3 minutes. So I'll open this up to the committee if anybody would like to speak on the topic from the committee, and then we'll go to the council. Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I am here in support of continuing fluoride in our municipal water supply. Fluoride has been shown to significantly reduce dental cavities, a major health issue, and the CDC recognizes it as one of the 10 great public health achievements of the 20th century. So it protects everyone regardless of income and even benefits those without access to regular dental care. Unlike just using toothpaste, ingested fluoride offers systemic protection, strengthening teeth before they erupt, especially for infants and young children. Dr. Marianne Forcell, a local dentist, writes, one of 7 Wisconsin Rapids residents lives in poverty, with low-income adults having more untreated cavities. We simply cannot afford to remove fluoride, which helps everyone. She also points out that every dollar spent on fluoridation saves $38 in dental treatment costs, benefiting both individuals and the healthcare system. Excuse me. There are misconceptions about fluoride's effects on IQ. However, extensive studies by the World Health Organization and the American Academy of Pediatrics show no harm at the level used in community fluoridation. Removing fluoride would harm our community, increase dental care disparities, and burden our already strained system. I urge this committee to prioritize science, public health, and the well-being of our residents by maintaining fluoride in our water. Thank you.
Okay, since this was posted on the agenda a few days ago, I've tried to familiarize myself with this topic. I'm by no means an expert, and I'd just like to explain the thinking behind my vote. Firstly, I read many articles and watched news reports about fluoride in drinking water. Each one, either for or against putting fluoride in drinking water, did mention the risks of fluoride. Secondly, I did searches, as anyone here can do, trying to get more information. First search was, who profits from putting fluoride in drinking water? The answer was ADA and manufacturers of medical equipment and others. Second search, put in, is fluoride a byproduct of, and it filled in, aluminum smelting. The AI overview answer is yes, fluoride is considered a byproduct of aluminum smelting. Under explanation, it reads fluoride waste disposal. These are quotes. In the past, the metal and chemical industries sold fluoride waste to local municipalities to solve their toxic waste disposal issues, end quote. Wait. Fluoride produced as a byproduct of manufacturing is considered a toxic waste? And then it was sold to local municipalities to solve the metal and chemical manufacturers' toxic waste disposal problems? That can't be right. So my next search was, is fluoride considered a toxic waste? First one that comes up, NIH, the NIH.gov or whatever it is. First listed article is titled Toxicity of Fluoride, Critical Evaluation of Evidence for Human Developmental Neurotoxicity in Epidemiological Studies, Animal Experiments, and In Vitro Analysis. According to the American Cancer Society's website, most recent research, several studies looking at the possible link between water fluoridation and cancer have been published in recent years, end quote. According to Cambridge University, Cambridge.org article titled Aluminum and Fluoride in Drinking Water in Relation to Later Dementia Risk. And it concludes, and I quote, higher levels of aluminum and fluoride were related to dementia risk in a population of men and women who consumed relatively low drinking water levels of both, end quote. From what I can see in all these studies, that they would like to do more human level experiments and get more information gathered from human exposures. I think the real question is, do the benefits outweigh the rewards? By taking fluoride out of the drinking water, we're not banning fluoride or making it illegal in any way. Those who believe in fluoride can still use it just as before. Truth is, everybody and each individual is different and reacts differently to products and chemicals. As for me, I am on the side of caution, and I will vote on the side of caution, and I will vote to remove it from our drinking water.
So seeing that the fluorination of our water seems to be a hot topic and is being discussed in other communities, even before this got put on the agenda, I was doing my own research. And you have to be careful about where you do your research and where you get your information, because Google, you can just find about anything that would support your pre-notion. So some of the areas I went for research led me to believe that that fluorination of our water is a benefit. It's considered public health's most significant advancement in the 20th century, contributing to a substantial improvement in dental health care for millions of Americans. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention reports that communities with fluorinated water experience an average of 25% fewer cavities, which translates to a significant savings on dental treatment, approximately $32 per person annually. And as a firefighter, I look at the Dental Association doing the same work as what the fire service is doing. Pretty much trying to put themselves out of business by having fewer cavities. So that's very noble. Furthermore, the recent evaluation by the National Toxicology Program affirmed that there's no conclusive evidence to suggest that the current fluoride levels maintained at 0.7 parts per million or less pose any health risks. This aligns with findings from numerous reputable organizations such as the American Dental Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the World Health Organizations, all of which support community water fluorination as a public safety measure. So I would like to express my strong support in maintaining our fluoride in our municipal system for the betterment of everybody's sake.
Yeah, I would not prefer to continue to fluorinate the water, and basically, I'm just not in favor of putting any government requiring me to take any chemicals, and that's pretty much the bottom line. I don't use fluoride toothpaste, and we do use drinking water, obviously, but we run that through the Brita, but that doesn't take fluoride out. So, I'm just opposed in general to chemicals being introduced at government expense of any reason. So I'm opposed to having fluoride in the water.
So, as a supporter of science, public health, and the medical staff and scientists that dedicate their lives to improving our health, I support continuing our fluoride program. The study that was referenced in the referral does make the suggestion that high doses of fluoride can lead to a reduced childhood IQ or any of those other items. However, it's important to note that the difference there is that we routinely, or our Waterworks and Lighting team routinely monitors the level of fluoride, and every other scientific article shows that a level that we currently use does not have a negative impact. It actually only has a positive impact. As Alderperson Austin stated, the people who will be impacted when we remove fluoride are the most vulnerable in our community. That's 1 in 7 children who live in poverty. And those 1 in 7 children likely struggle to get to the 1 of 3 dentists that live in our area or that work in our area for low or free dental care. One argument is that the fluoride can be added to water, and I would say that if you had to choose between eating dinner and putting fluoride in your water, those people in low-income communities who have to rely on everything else aren't going to buy the fluoride. We will have removed their only method of having some sort of protection. And then I would urge everyone to review the studies that show the differences between communities, such as in Canada, when researchers compared a community who stopped adding fluoride to one that did, and it showed the significant higher cavities in children, which, if left untreated, leads to other long-term health impacts like heart disease, which puts a strain on our medical system. There's a study in Alaska from 2018 where researchers compared children in Juneau before and after fluoride was removed from their water. They showed significantly higher cavities in children. And then in 1994, the city of Anago removed fluoride from their water. And then 4 years later, the citizens voted to reintroduce it because the cavities went up 100% and the community had a great deal of strain paying for their dental care. Thank you.
I'm going to kind of reserve my opinion until I hear what the Waterworks and Lighting Company have to say. And I see there's a representative in the audience. I'm sure is going to want to speak. I guess I'm on the fence with this. I would like to hear what the experts have to say.
Council and committee, everybody have their questions and statements out? Okay. We'll then go first to the residents of Wisconsin Rapids. So if you come up, please state your address and your name. Again, we're going to allow 2 minutes and then a little more if a council member wants to ask you a question.
Oh, there we are. Thanks, Zach. Just a couple quick things. You know, with the recent tax increases and everybody got, is there some kind of savings that we can get if we eliminate this program? Because I'm with Dean here on that, because if people want fluoride, they can find other ways to do that. So I just wonder if you guys knew that if there's some kind of cost savings for if we eliminate this in the city, because with the shutdown of the mill and our taxes all went, we need to look at saving every dollar we can someplace. So, thank you.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Deary. I've lived here in Wisconsin Rapids over 40 years, so longtime resident. Thank you. 3030 10th Street South. So.
Michael Tim, 410 Grove Avenue, Patrick's district. I think what you're going to hear tonight is a lot of pros and cons, right? Like, there's a bunch for, there's a bunch against it. I'm going to kind of speak on my feeling on the public water violates the principle of informed consent, as individuals are exposed to substance without their explicit approval. I contend that just like any other medication or medical device, there should be a personal choice, not a government-mandated measure applied universally. I also raise concerns about potential health risks associated with long-term fluoride exposure. Some studies suggest links between excessive fluoride consumption and health issues such as dental fluorosis, galactofluorosis, thyroid dysfunction, and possible neurodevelopmental effects. Keep in mind the goal isn't to ban fluoride, like we've said, but with widespread availability of fluoride-containing dental products such as toothpaste, mouth rinses, and even the things we eat and drink every day contain fluoride. I would question the necessity of adding it to drinking water. I would argue that individual fluoride use is sufficient for dental health without the need for mass exposure through water supply. From my perspective, removing fluoride would respect personal choice, reduce potential health risks, and shift the responsibility of fluoride use to individuals and families, allowing for more personalized health decisions. Thank you.
Hello. Never speak at these things, so
Name and-
I'll try to make it quick.
Name and address, please.
My name's Audrey Day, and I live at 1621 30th Street North. Hello, Legislative Committee. As a resident of Wisconsin Rapids, I've enjoyed moving to the city almost 4 years ago and being a part of this community through my work and social life. I view Wisconsin Rapids as a progressive, growing community that cares about the health of their constituents. A little backstory about my oral health. I have had cavities since I was a teenager. I would get 1 or 2 here or there and thought it was normal. I did not realize that a good amount of my peers had never even had one. It wasn't until I was off my parents' insurance and went to a new dentist in my mid-20s and was told that I needed 6 cavities filled. Keep in mind, I got my regular dental checkup every 6 months at that point. I had no insurance and had to pay out of pocket and get my first care credit card while racking up over $600 of debt, and I had a minimum wage job at the time. I could not afford it, and having that many cavities filled at once just about ruined my teeth. I was never a soda or juice drinker as a kid. I didn't have a big sweet tooth, and I brushed and flossed every day. When I looked into it, a large majority of oral health is determined by genetics, and if you have tooth decay or caries, you can be battling it your whole life. I've had to get about 1 to 2 cavities filled every year consistently since then, and even had to get a crown because of the amount of fillings I had on one tooth. Keep in mind, I am 34 years old. I have to wear a lab-made mouthguard due to bruxism and have extreme gum recession caused by that. I do not want to have a mouth full of crowns or get dentures one day. I want my natural teeth no matter how many problems I have. I can't even floss normally due to all the pits and snags from my fillings. I was a pretty normal, healthy kid who didn't realize the issues I would have down the road. I would never wish this on anyone. If you choose to remove fluoride, remove all fluoride from the city's water, I'll be one of those people affected most by it, me and thousands of others. I can't afford to get any more fillings or crowns, and I cannot afford to buy special water or fluoride tablets all the time. I drink the city tap water every day. After I eat and drink anything, I switch my mouth with the water, knowing that it's like a mini fluoride bath for my teeth every time, knowingly. Fluoride has been proven time and time again to prevent up to 25% of tooth decay over a person's lifetime. Fluoride is a mineral that occurs naturally already in our water, but the levels aren't enough to actually show benefits. Community water fluoridation is one of the most well-documented and recommended public health efforts that has been around for over 70 years. If you think that these low levels of fluoride has caused any issues, that means that we would have seen it in the older generations. That study that was included in your agenda speaks to fluoride in the drinking water that exceeds 1.5 milligrams per liter. The typical and recommended amounts in our drinking water are half that at 0.7 milligrams per liter. That's a huge difference. Let's face it, if you remove fluoride from our water, you will be affecting the most vulnerable populations that we have here, the poor. They already can't afford to see a dentist, and if they're on Badger Care, they have huge wait lists to see a dentist that will even accept that insurance. I know this because I work with these individuals. So consider those individuals when you make your decision. I trust the real science that has been around for decades, and so should you. If you remove fluoride from the water, this will be a huge step backward for this community. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Laura Ewell. I live at 1740 Fifth Street South, and I'm against having fluoride in the water. I'm against any government trying to tell us what we should eat or drink, what kind of vaccines we should take. And as far as the money is concerned, as far as having the health issue for dental and whatnot, the money you'd save for having not put it in the water, buy fluoride tablets for the people that still want it. It's a win-win.
Thank you. I'm William Akey. I live at 511 Ash Street in Wisconsin Rapids. I'm a lifetime resident of this city except for the 8 years that I went to dental school, and I came back to my hometown. I've practiced here for over 30 years as a general dentist. To say that I've dedicated my life to the study of this would be an understatement. Some of the salient points that I would just like to reiterate, some of you have already said that I think are most important. Everything, including fluoride, has a therapeutic level, a helpful level, and everything has a toxic level or a level that it should not be taken at. Look at any prescription or medication at home. There's a recommended dose you're supposed to take. Not because it'll simply work better if you take twice the amount, okay? Everybody knows Tylenol is a very useful pain medication. Ask any ER what happens when someone takes a bottle of Tylenol, what's gonna happen. It's the same with everything. People don't like things added to their water, I can understand that, but no one's complaining about the chlorine that's being put in the water to keep it safe. Fluoride for decades has, through dozens of studies, been shown to be safe and effective in relatively trace amounts. And it's true from what people have told you here today. The people that will be most affected are going to be the people that lose that systemic dose of fluoride. In simple terms, fluoride needs to be given in a systemic way and a topical way. Topically, it's your toothpaste that you use hopefully twice a day. Systemically, it's through a community water fluoridation. Over 72% of the population in the United States right now has access to community water fluoridation. Yes, the ADA spends a lot of money trying to get more of the population under community water fluoridation. I'm an ADA member. We don't see a penny for anybody putting fluoride in water. We are simply trying to promote what is best for the oral health of the people in this country. Thank you.
Sir, can I ask you a question, please?
Absolutely.
What kind of fluoride do you use in your practice?
It would depend, it could be sodium fluoride, it could be stannous fluoride,
Is that pharmaceutical grade?
most likely. It's being
Thank you.
provided to me, yes.
Thank you.
Do I have any of my 2 minutes left? I have people worried about pharmaceutical grade and non-pharmaceutical grade.
You got like 30 seconds.
I've got like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So fluoride's an element, okay? Periodic table, high school chemistry. The source of the fluoride, how the fluoride is derived, does not change what the fluoride is, okay? So it can come from, yes, an industrial source. You could dig a hole in the ground, find it in the soil. Has many sources, but regardless, fluoride is fluoride regardless of source. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Justin Deary. I live at 3030 10th Street South, Wisconsin Rapids. I wasn't going to come up here and say anything, but we're talking about pharmaceutical grade, good grade. And I've been researching this too ever since I heard about this. If there's trace elements of aluminum in non-pharmaceutical fluoride, and it has the potential to damage children's minds, why are we crying about our teeth? How much money and how many teeth would you give for a child's mind to not be damaged? So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lynn Deary from Wisconsin Rapids, lifetime here. I have a question. When was fluoride put into the water in Wisconsin Rapids? Can anyone answer that? 1951. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I was born in 1958. Drank the water all my life. Mouthful cavities. Nothing I did. Genetics. Fluoride didn't help. Follow the science. Let's think. Follow the science. We need to get rid of egg yolk because it causes heart disease. Years and years and years. I can't eat nothing but egg whites, which I knew was baloney because there's lecithin in egg yolk, which helps break down cholesterol. But people don't think. They want to follow whatever scientist says lines up with them. Basically, look at COVID. Ivermectin's bad. Hydroxychloroquine's bad. It's all bad. The drug was bastardized because it was cheap. Follow the money, please. We are poisoning ourselves. Every toxin that we introduce into our bodies, whether it's trace elements of this or trace elements of that, it's going to build up. Look at the rise in cancer. Look at the rise in cancer with the children, for crying out loud. When I was a kid, I knew one kid that had cancer. One. All these toxins that we are okaying to put into our system, our food, our water, whatever, they build up. They build up and they build up and they build up. We have an epidemic of cancers. Why?
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, and the money you would save, buy the tablets of fluoride and give them that way.
Thank you. Resident, I know you're from the health department. Is there any, are you live in the city too? I'm a resident too. Oh, yeah, come on up. Come on. No, come on up. If there's any other residents that would like to come up? Tom? Okay. We'll go Tom Muse and then Tom Rayon.
Most of you already know who I am, but for the record, Tom Muse, 541 Canal Street in Wisconsin Rapids. Just like most of you, once this topic came up last week in a post by our local scanner group, I did probably about 40 hours of research. I like to try to remain biased within the decision making. I try to look at both sides and formulate my own answers. And through that, I also reach out to the medical community with my wife. She's also a pediatric nurse, seeing what she sees in our patients at the hospital in Marshfield. With multiple the under-income families and the condition of their kids' teeth, they're not exposed typically to the fluorinated water within cities. They're normally country-type folk. And I also look back at the almost 50 years of my own life. I've only had 2 cavities throughout my entire life. And during that time, it was actually when I served in the military. And I was drinking water out of the 500-gallon truck things that they basically dropped off into Iraq. With all the different research I've looked on at, the most in-depth source that I've been able to find to answer both of my questions has been through the National Library of Medicine, who did studies from basically 2014 through 2020, both within the United States and abroad. And they have conclusions on both the benefits and the cautionary measures towards fluoride, period. When it is actually mitigated to a certain level, it's a benefit to everyone. In order for it to actually be a damaging chemical to our bodies, it has to be extremely high. When I go back to what some of the other persons have said as far as you don't want any chemicals in the water, I'm definitely for that. But if it's an actual benefit and helps keeps our water clean within our piping system being a municipality, it's a benefit. As a home inspector, I also know the ingredients.
You can finish this sentence, but otherwise
Okay.
your 2 minutes.
I also know the ingredients in the multiple pipes and within our system. Even if we do not add fluoride, removing the fluoride would actually allow the piping materials of our city to leach into it. So we're going to actually be picking up 5 other chemicals with the removal of 1.
Thank you. Tom Brown?
Tom Riom, 1220 22nd Street North, Wisconsin Rapids. I'm here to speak in favor of continuing the use of fluoride in our drinking water. I think we can listen, I guess, to personal things of why, or somebody doesn't want to have the government do stuff. Well, I don't like these people that just pick and choose what they don't want the government to do for us. Do you want to take everything away that the government does and see how we operate? I think this is because of the importance of it. It's something that I don't know that technically, and I won't say any of us, but there are some here qualified on the subject. The others are getting the information, making the decision, and whatnot. This is the thing that we have to rely on, not our personal thoughts, what the scientists and the government recommends. I'm tired of seeing the people get appointed to different cabinet positions with no expertise on anything and keep repeating things and repeating things and repeating things.
Tom?
And people start believing it, believing it, believing it.
Tom, you're...
So I think it's, excuse me, I really think this
Your
is
2
something.
minutes is up, Tom.
The scientific evidence is something that has to be taken into account And I think that takes a lot more reading and whatnot than people have done this up till this evening.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Hello, I'm Alan Glinsky, 3430 15th Street South. Been a scientist for over 50 years of my life, including finishing vice president of research at the Buren Research Center. So I use my knowledge not so much from a dentist's point of view or a fluoride point of view, but I'm looking for someone who has looked the pros and the cons, looked at the data, and made decisions based on the data. I just heard about this in the paper a couple days ago, or maybe it was yesterday. And I thought, wow, I got to come and see what's going on. And from what I can tell, if you can keep fluorine at a proper level, it presents no health issue based on studies that were done. Then there's a study that went around the world, 10 countries, whatever. It says then it can be associated with child IQ. Well, okay, I'd really like to see how that study was done because it's hard to measure IQ of a child. And the question I often wonder is, did they then check to see whether that is a recoverable IQ loss? Do you pick it up? Was there something wrong in the country at the time? Did mom and dad suddenly have to go to work because there was a war going on? I don't know, and there's not enough data there to convince me that it really causes that effect. And at what level did they test it? All that kind of stuff, there's so much missing there. But what I do know is that the cavity level should be better with fluoride, as should maybe some, I heard some bone structure. I'm getting older and bone structure gets to be more important. And yeah, maybe it doesn't matter for somebody who's really, really old. That's just the way it goes. So anyway, statistically, I couldn't make a decision that says take it out. Some of it appears to be working well. I don't know enough in the data that tells me that, by golly, it really does do harmful stuff. And we need more of that for sure. Now that's the data we needed to make a good decision. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any other residents of the city? What is it? What do you got?
This is for Alderman Pescover. Could you just make it clear for the record, are you still serving on the Water and Light Board? Thank you.
I believe there's a member from the Wood County Health Department here. Would you like to speak?
Thank you. I work at the Public Health Department. I'm a supervisor, and I've been there for 17 years. I oversee our oral health program as well as our community and policy division. And I'm also a resident of Wisconsin Rapids. I live at 1761 Riverwood Lane. On behalf of the Wood County Health Department, I am writing to express our support of the continuation of community water fluoridation as a critical tool proven to reduce tooth decay and improve overall oral health in communities. Fluoride, as has been stated, is a natural mineral that exists in lakes, rivers, and groundwater. Most water contains some fluoride, however, not enough to prevent cavities, so many communities add a little more fluoride to the water to reach an optimal level. Fluoride is a way to use Mother Nature to create a healthier community. The NTP review that is being cited and that was shared in your packets did not find negative health effects from the level of fluoride used in community water fluoridation in the U.S. And on, I think, page 2I actually states should not be used to reduce community water fluoridation. Drinking fluoridated water keeps teeth strong and reduces cavities by about 25% in the children and adults. This results in less mouth pain, fewer fillings or teeth pulled, and fewer missed days of work and school. The impact of this goes well beyond preventing cavities. Poor dental health can show an important source of can be an important source of stigma and shame for a child and can serve as a visible sign of poverty. Studies show that children with poor dental health are more likely to withdraw from social participation, hide their smiles, and have higher rates of school absenteeism, This also affects adults later in life, where they struggle to get employment, which we know is a big deal in our community. We support community water fluoridation and encourage the City of Wisconsin Rapids to review the evidence supporting its benefits. We urge you to continue this important preventive program for the well-being of our residents. Thank you for your consideration on this vital issue, and I just have one more comment to make. The optimal level of fluoride in drinking water is 0.7 milligrams per liter. The average child, 90 pounds, would have to drink 286 liters of fluoridated water daily to reach fluoride toxicity. At that point, they would die from water overconsumption. Thank you for your time. My name is Christy Eggy. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Christy. I have a question for you, and I don't know if anybody else does as well. Does the health department monitor the fluoride urine levels of the children in the community or the pregnant women?
We do not monitor fluoride levels in urine of anyone in Wisconsin Rapids, and I don't know of any organization locally that does, but I could be wrong.
So there's a lot of talk about this 0.7 parts per million. That's the safe amount. A little higher is not, but that's based on a lot of different things. It could be health conditions, kidney function, age. Infants, for example, pregnant mothers retain it differently. So my question was, if that's monitored anywhere to determine if those people are accumulating a toxic level in their body. If not the health department, is it their doctor? I mean, who would be measuring that?
Have you seen data of that measured
Yes.
in central Wisconsin?
Not in central Wisconsin.
Okay.
So there's no data.
You stated that you have not seen data for central Wisconsin. Therefore, I have also not seen data.
Okay, yeah, I thought maybe you knew something I didn't.
No.
Yeah, they know what the fluoride level is in the water, but we don't know how it's accumulating and yeah, yep. Okay, thank you. Anybody else got questions? Is there any other residents who would like to speak? All right, I believe there was a representative from the American Dental Association that requested to speak, sent me an email. If you want to state your name and then just your affiliation, I believe you're from Marshfield.
My name is, excuse me. My name is Dennis Godar. I am a member of the Central Wisconsin Dental Association. I am the president. My region runs from Rapids to Superior. As a practicing dentist, I practiced in rural Stratford, lots of cavities there. City of Marshfield, not so much so. So that's an antecedent evidence. You were asking questions. The University of Wisconsin Public School of Public Health, the dean gave a presentation to the media down in Milwaukee. If you have questions, he can answer all those questions you were asking. On a dental level, Dr. Dunkel is your dental director for the state of Wisconsin. He's got statistics up the wazoo, big file cabinet he can give you, such that it's equivalent to 1 inch per 800 miles or something like that. It's a very low level. I'm here to speak more on a personal level. I've had people from the water department complain about the corrosion that the fluoride causes. If you remember your high school chemistry, fluoride and chlorine are in the same part of the periodic table, you're going to get the same corrosion. So it's not going to save you anything money-wise for the water department. The farmers complain about fluorosis in their cows. I've talked to the vets. It's different that this disease that they call fluorosis in cows does not apply to humans. Okay, we have elder people. If it was my family, grandmother, mother, daughter, grandkids, I would want them to have the fluoride. Without the fluoride, fluoride is a catalyst for bone development. I've had the elderly lady ask me about the fluorosis in the bones, and she's worried about her bones breaking. What she doesn't want is the osteoporosis, the osteopenia, where there's not enough bone structure, and they give you the biphosphonates. Those biphosphonates cause osteonecrosis of the jaw, and for that, you got to go see an oral surgeon. We used to have 12 oral surgeons in the area. We're down to 1, and he's going to retire real soon. The oral surgeon in Chippewa Falls has a 5-year waiting list. So good luck if your grandmother gets osteonecrosis of the jaw because she doesn't have strong enough bones. Hydroxyapatite is what the tooth is made out of. Fluoride is a crystal that is incorporated in it, just like calcium is, okay? Without that fluoride in the middle of that ring, it's weak, and that's why you get the cavities. But there are medical benefits for the fluoride also, as I just described. Marathon County has several areas where the parts per million is like 3 to 4 parts per million. Many of those people drive to Anago to get the good water where it's only 7 parts per million because they do get problems when you get high concentrations like that. So fluoridation is not only putting fluoride into the water, some cities have to take it out of the water, especially in Texas where the concentrations are real high.
In our email, I said I'd give you 3 minutes. It's been 3.
Okay.
So.
This WDA did send to your city water department people statistics. I understand that email was not received. I will see to it that the city water department gets that email. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we do have a representative from Water and Light here as well, right?
My name's Adam Brunig. I'm the water superintendent for Water and Light. So I'm not going to try to convince you one way or the other. I'm just going to tell you what the stance of the utility is. And so the local government is the one responsible for regulating if fluoride is added or not. That's per state statute. If we add it, we have to add it at an optimal range of 0.6 to 0.8 parts per million or the 0.7 average. That is required by the DNR. That is then sent over by the EPA. So out of these associations, we have the American Dental Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, Center of Disease Control and Prevention, the U.S. Public Human and Health Services, which is actually the report you referenced, and the Wisconsin Department of Health have all recommended the continued use of fluoride in drinking water. So due to the fact that we have no medical professionals at the utility's stance is always going to be to rely on the medical and scientific departments. So due to these recommendations from these associations, our recommendation to the committee is that we continue using it at the 0.7 parts per million range. Any other questions?
I have one. What kind of fluoride is used at the utility?
We use hydrofluorosilicic acid, 19.8% solution, NSF food grade.
Thank you. Any other? Go ahead.
Is fluoride in the water naturally in Wisconsin Rapids before you add it?
Yes.
And what is it?
0.07 parts per million.
Thank you.
If somebody were concerned about the level of fluoride in their water, does Waterworks and Lighting do anything to help ease that concern, or is there a way for their water to be tested?
So yes, we can test it at the laboratory. We test it daily, every day. So usually if they'll request what the reading is that day on the entry point to the system, we will let them know what that reading is on a daily basis.
And we, as residents can come in, grab a kit, bring it back, and have that tested in the same way?
That's correct.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for him? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, we'll bring it back to committee and council. Would anyone like further discussion on this? Going once?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to remove the addition of fluoride to the city water supply. As I had stated before, It's not like we're making it illegal or banning it. People can get prescriptions for it. They can get mouthwash. They can use it in their toothpaste. The fact that the city has chosen to do this, I don't agree with. So my motion is to remove fluoride from the city water supply.
Thank you. Sue, do we need an ordinance for that, or can we simply do it by vote?
I think we should have an ordinance.
Okay. Well, from Patrick's motion, if it passes, you would draft
I would prepare an
ordinance?
ordinance for the council meeting.
Okay. Thank you. I'll second Mr. Delaney's motion. A motion by Delaney, second by Cattenall. All those in the affirmative?
Yes.
Aye.
No.
All right, 2 ayes, 1 nay, motion passes. Item 3, discuss a referral from Alderperson Palmquist regarding revisions to Chapter 25 of the Municipal Code, relations to Section 25.01, animals not to run at large, prohibited animals, dangerous animals, 25.02, barns, kennels, stables, pig pens, or others, enclosures, 25.03, dog and cat regulations, 25.04, control of rabies and biting dogs or cats, and 25.05, exemption permit. Ms. Palmquist.
So I wrote this referral to clean up the section of our ordinance where we have written in animal controls for, lack of better terms tonight, corralling dogs and cats if they're on the loose. Who is able to do that, what happens to them, how long we keep them, that kind of thing, and then making the ordinance as broad as possible so that in the future, if it comes down to us soliciting services or requesting services from any organization, we're not bound by ordinance to go with one specific group over another.
So I've read through this, and I do have a few corrections. I do agree with almost everything, if not everything. And some parts were a little confusing. Let's see here. First, I'll just start out as we go through. 2501 sub 2. I was wondering if we wanted to include language excluding honeybees, because us being a bird and bee city, I would think that we would not have bees listed as dangerous animals that would be exterminated by the by the police if they saw a beehive in the city. I think that would be encouraged. So I think it should either be added to the sub 4, which is exemptions, or it should be added just include language excluding honeybees as far as dangerous animals. Any comments or questions? Or
So currently, we are, a bee city, or we encourage that through No Mow May and other things. But beekeeping, is that what's addressed?
yeah, honeybees are a very safe bee. They're not dangerous. I guess unless you would step on one or crush it in some way, they're not going to come and attack you. I mean, you can look online. There's pictures of people just covered in honeybees, and that's just a thing. So I would think beekeeping would be good for the city plants and the trees, and why not?
I don't disagree. However, I think we may want to look at that as a separate item, similar to how we have an ordinance for chickens, just to make sure that someone's entire backyard and garage isn't.
Yeah, it's listed in here though under the 2501 sub 2, right at the end.
Okay.
It just says bees. It doesn't say honeybees. I mean, I would think yes, people keeping wasps and hornets, that would be bad. But I would think honeybees would be acceptable. I'll move on to the next one. I don't think
Okay.
we're going to get anywhere there. Next is 2501 sub 5, E and G, which I have to familiarize myself with this because it's been some time since I've looked at this. Oh, okay. So just before this, it talks about dangerous animals. Like, hey, you can't have dangerous animals. Like, no, there's no dangerous animals in the city. You can't have any. And then the next one is, well, if you get a license for it, then you can have it. So it's a little conflicting and confusing. I don't know. Did you get that? Did I read it wrong? I mean, I'm not the brightest one, so I could be wrong.
That's once, there are certain things, once an animal is deemed dangerous, like if you go to court, you have the trial, I've done a few of these, then, if it's not euthanized, and then there are certain conditions on the animal, and one of them is that it has to be licensed. It's not, it's to keep track of it, right? And so I don't think that's
But the ordinance
inconsistent.
before prohibits dangerous animals. So once it's deemed
No,
dangerous, like,
you can't harbor, keep, or maintain an animal, dangerous animal contrary to the section. There is a due process for someone to be found, or a dog to be found, or dangerous. And once that process goes, it's not automatic that the animal is euthanized. Sometimes there are conditions that are put forth, and so you can have a dangerous animal, and the judge would be the one that determined whether it's euthanized or not. And if it's allowed to live, then there are certain things such as the collar and so on. So I guess, consistent with the ordinance is that there are, it's not in every instance that you're going to euthanize a dangerous dog.
Does that mean, Sue, that a dangerous animal in the definitions needs to be an animal that is deemed dangerous by the due process in court?
Well, it says no person shall own, harbor, keep, or maintain within the city limits any dangerous animal contrary to this section. Any animal alleged to be dangerous is impounded, and then it goes to the issued by citation, and then you have a trial. There's the findings of what the judge has to find in order for it to be dangerous. Obviously, first is the impoundment of the animal first. The due process with the owner and what I have to send to them in terms of appearing for the hearing. Then the judge decides what happens. One of them is humane destruction, and then other one is if the dog is going to continue to live, then there are restrictions on it. So I guess if you wanted me to make something clearer on that, it's, the dangerous animal is a finding, it has to be a finding by the judge. And then what happens to the dangerous animal, that's in the disposition. And that could be humane destruction, or it could be with restrictions.
I think adding that in the definitions would be helpful, because to Patrick's point, bees would ever be deemed dangerous animals, similar to how I noted in here, our canine officers would not be deemed dangerous because they would not go through the court process and be deemed dangerous. But this ordinance should lay out the process for what exactly that is, how they get to that, and then what the requirements are if they do.
Mm-hmm.
okay, continuing on. Let's see here, 2503 sub 5. It's a few pages back here. I was wondering if domesticated animals instead of dogs and cats control You don't, it's talking about letting your domesticated animal run loose, or just dog as it was originally stated. And that also comes up in 2503 sub 6 A, B, and C, replace dogs and cats with animal or domesticated animal, in my opinion.
Under the license section?
We're in 2503 sub 5.
Oh, I thought you said
And then,
2.
yeah, we're a few pages. We're on
I'm sorry,
page
5.
7.
Okay, so you want that to be basically domesticated animal controls?
Well,
Or no person
or,
to spread any
or
domestic-
dog. See, the thing is there's more than just dogs and cats in the city, and I don't think any of them should be running wild. The Humane Society has picked up all sorts of animals, rabbits and snakes. Yes. So I think anything that is domesticated or kept should be kept by the owner. Or if you just want to make it a dog ordinance, make it a dog ordinance. Which I think it was originally. Madeline had added, or cat, many times. If you go down on H, Madeline had put the minimum impoundment period is for 7 or 4 days after the dog is delivered to the contracted animal shelter organization. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Sure. So in assessing the data that came from the Humane Society over 2024, it appeared that most dogs or cats that are reclaimed by city residents stay majority overnight or 1 day. There were a few that stayed longer than that, where the stay was significantly extended. But if the animal was reclaimed, they were reclaimed within 5 days. They were reclaimed within 4 days. So we have the ability to pay and ask the Humane Society to hold them for 7 days or 4 days, knowing that an animal that is being held there is our property, and that prevents them from providing a lot of care or treatment because it's just on a hold. So if we decreased the amount of stay, we would be surrendering that animal to the possession of the Humane Society sooner, which could allow for them to be treated or adopted out sooner.
So everything else, I don't know if everybody's read this or not. Madeline had done a fantastic job of going through this and making it easier. I agree with all her comments on the side, and also the changes that she had made, and I would approve it with those changes. Unless somebody else has questions or comments, go right ahead.
My question's rather simple. In 25.07 south, the south is struck out of Southwood County. It to me kind of makes it appears that we're putting employees of the government identity of Wood County to investigate. Are we giving powers to the county government by doing that, or is that
For rabies hold? I missed the
on the
section.
25.07, number 1, paragraph 1, the south is struck out. I just want to make sure we're not violating.
No, the county is responsible for doing the rabies investigations. We don't have a humane officer at the city. So whenever a humane officer needs to be involved, that we automatically work with the county's humane officer.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, but I mean, the humane officer does, in the county, we don't have an opt-out, so the humane officer does handle most Chapter 174, Chapter, 951 actions, but our police enforce our local ordinances that are in here, such as our dangerous animal ordinance. And then like 17402, which would be tags, running at large. The humane officer does not do those things. So that's why I think some of these, it'll need to be changed back to putting our dangerous animal ordinance back in. I just got some information from the county today on this, and they sent a kind of a flow chart of how they handle things, and I think it's probably a good time to have a discussion with them on kind of making sure we know what the humane officer is doing, what we're doing, where there's overlap, but they're basically relying on us to enforce our ordinances to the extent that we have them. So, and our dangerous ordinance, our animal ordinance predates theirs by a number of years. So after ours was in effect, then the county did adopt one, but ours goes through municipal court and is handled by our police officers. So I would suggest that continue. And as I said, it would require a few other changes to the document, also where it references the humane officer versus a law enforcement officer. And I was going to say something else. And actually, just this whole licensing, I agree, it's not very well written. I don't know. This has probably been here for 30 or 40 years. And just to make it more concise, and there are parts that should be contained together. I agree. There's things in a couple different spots that are just kind of duplicative. And I agree with most of the other comments that are in the document, but I think I would suggest, based on talking to the county today and kind of getting clarity on what the humane officer is doing, that some of this would not be changed. But today I just didn't have time to, after talking with them, to make any of those changes.
I think it's a great idea to continue to have our officers enforce, especially when we have stray or loose animals. We definitely need our officers to enforce. We can't rely on the county to help us with that. The piece that it read weird to me was that the city of Wisconsin Rapids would be doing a rabies hold or a dangerous animal impoundment, which we don't. And I would not recommend having any ordinance that incorporates another ordinance that isn't by reference, because then we run the risk of that changing, and as you said, it's been 30 or 40 years. So if we have something that says we will be sending something certified mail by 5 days, and then the county has something that they've changed it to within 2 days, we're violating our own ordinance, and it is just cleaner and safer to incorporate a county ordinance for that when needed.
So you're referencing our dangerous animal ordinance to the extent that it is different than the county's. Is that right?
It could be. I didn't do a side-by-side, but I know the county humane officer does the impoundment of dangerous animals and transfers them to the Humane Society where they're held.
Right. Sometimes, though, our officer, there's been an occasion where our officer has had to do that, though, in a situation. And I don't know if the officer was not available or after a incident, a bite incident.
Have we ever sent certified mail within 5 business days after our city officers have impounded an animal?
Yes.
Okay. Even though that's a county controlling.
Well, no, our dangerous animal ordinance is our own. We enforce that. We have the process through municipal court. The humane officer is involved to the extent to be a witness or to facilitate, but that's all run through municipal court.
I thought there was a state statute that required the humane officer to handle those things.
Well, I guess there is, but to the extent we have our own dangerous animal ordinance, we, I guess, enforce it. So what does enforce mean? The humane officer is involved, and I'm in contact, have been in contact with her regarding whenever we've had those issues. And as I said, she can be a witness to it, but, and ideally she is the one that is handling the animal. I'm just saying, I remember there was an occasion where the humane officer did not. And I think it originally had said it's the duty of the, I guess it said the duty of the police officer or the police department to seize any animal whose owner is alleged to have violated this section. And I don't recall whether if she's transported on all occasions or if we did. I'm not sure. We've probably had 4 or 5 of these over the years.
I'll dig out the statute that I was referring to and just send it to you, just in case
no,
there's
that's
any
fine. Yeah.
overlap or things to write in.
So the beekeeping, you wanted to reserve the ability to do that and like even get definitions and stuff for that to make sure that that's kind of a protected thing? Is that what you're, or?
Well, I wanted to bring this all together. Are you receiving enough information or taking this down on the suggested changes that you'll be able to draft if there was a motion to be made to draft a new ordinance, that you would encompass those into the ordinance? Or, because we're talking about a lot of different things here, so I'm just wondering how we come out of this.
I have mine all written that I can.
That's what I want, when it goes to make a motion, what are we referring to, or what change, are we going to refer to the changes in the motion, or are we going to refer to what Attorney Schill has written down, what Patrick has, what Madeline has?
Do you want an ordinance to be brought back to you after
Yes.
putting everything together?
I
think that would be easier.
I would prefer
I don't
that,
think there's any hurry on this. And as I said, I'll give me a chance to talk, it will give me a chance to talk to the county and make sure we're on the same page.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to ask the committee and maybe the other aldermen about and Sue, about the dangerous animals. I don't think that a city is any place to have or house any dangerous animals. That's my own personal opinion. I think it's a great risk to any resident, especially if it does get loose. And to Sue, I just want to know if one is legally deemed dangerous, if we could not allow that in city limits.
Well, you would simply, I guess you would put that anytime there's a finding of dangerousness, that the disposition has to be humane destruction. I would say in the ones I've handled, there's only been one that has not been euthanized. And it was a situation where there were actually 2 dogs that were deemed dangerous, and it was kind of clear that the one was the more of the aggressor and had been involved in more incidents, and so the judge, I thought, reasonably decided that the one dog, even though technically it kind of, maybe met the definition of a dangerous animal, was allowed to continue under certain restrictions. And I think that dog ended up passing away just of natural causes, kind of within, shortly after that. But yeah, I mean, I guess this would allow, right now it allows, that there could be another disposition other than destroying the dog.
I would be more in favor of saying that if we keep the restrictions in, and if those restrictions are violated, then that animal is no longer allowed in the city. But I do believe that there are responsible dog owners who, if they have an incident and their dog is deemed dangerous and not put down, then they are responsible enough to control and maintain that animal.
So by definition, it would take an incident to deem an animal dangerous then? Or, I'm thinking about, animal owners that have animals for protection. And, yes, if a resident can control their dog, that's one thing. But, if somebody comes onto their property and the animal does what it's trained to do, is there a potential for that animal to be deemed dangerous?
Not if it has to be without provocation, when not provoked. An animal which habitually approaches or chases any human being or domestic animal in a menacing fashion or apparent attitude of attack without intentional provocation on public or private property. An animal which bites, inflicts injury, attacks, or otherwise endangers the safety of human beings or domestic animals without intentional provocation on public or private property. Any animal owned, harbored, or trained for the purpose of fighting.
So if somebody was to accidentally stumble upon somebody else's property and the animal wasn't necessarily provoked, but it did what it was trained to do, that animal could be potentially deemed dangerous.
I would not, I mean, first off, the dog has to be on a lead, and within, and restrained, I guess. So you're saying it's outside and someone approaches the house and the dog is outside and right. Probably not. I mean, if the person, it's habitual, I guess the first time probably isn't going to trigger the dangerous animal. I mean, the ones that I've prosecuted are it's been more than once. It's been clearly the dogs have aggression issues. It's not provoked or someone stumbling on, someone's property. There's a history there, and it's clearly not, the animals are leaving property or they're, approaching other dogs on sidewalks or in the street. So I don't think there's any concern about that happening but if someone trains their dog to attack, I guess someone that's not on their property, then that might be an issue. But no, on the private property, and I wouldn't think that would rise to the level. And as I said, it usually has to be a kind of a habitual act, and the first one bite or one instance is not going to reach that level.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
So at this point, a number of changes have been suggested. I believe Attorney Schill has taken these into account. She'll be open for communication going forward. Would we like to make a motion to direct the city attorney to draft an updated ordinance for this, or would anyone like to specify in the motion what they want in the ordinance, the number of changes? How would the committee like to proceed?
I'll make a motion to approve this as presented with Madeline's revisions that she had made, also with the revisions that I had talked about, and present it back to legislative with those revisions, as well as any communication with the Wood County that would be beneficial to be added into this. That's my motion.
And Attorney Schill, you're taking minutes. You got all that?
Yes, if the Treasurer or Finance Department would like to kind of clean up the dog license portion and the pet exemption portion. Could we possibly bring just optional language on that, I guess, maybe to
Yeah.
clean that up?
Yeah, well,
I know
we're
that's
gonna-
something that I talked with them about, and they,
Yeah, the intent is to make the changes and bring it back to legislative for review.
okay, thank you.
Is that good with you, Ryan?
Yeah, that's good. I'll second that motion.
All right. Motion by Delaney, second by Austin. All those in the affirmative?
Yes.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Item 4, discuss a referral from Alderperson Penscover to increase the terms of alderpersons and the mayor from 2 years to 4 years. Mr. Penscover?
I guess I'm just looking for a conversation tonight to see how other people might be viewing this. I personally don't think 2 years is enough time to accomplish the goals that people have in mind when they get these positions. I've got thoughts on this. Maybe I'm wrong. And in particular with the mayor's position, I know right now we're looking at doing some things that's going to take more than 2 years. And it seems like you get things going one way and things are looking good. And then an election comes up and for some reason our mayor would lose, the direction would be switched and we wouldn't be able to accomplish what we've been trying to do for 2 years. I can speak from the experience of being a newly elected city councilman. There's a learning curve. It takes you about 6-7 months to kind of get your feet on the ground and see what you're trying to accomplish. And I personally don't feel 2 years is enough time. So I guess I would just be looking for a conversation and some feedback from the council members and committee members as to what your thoughts might be on this, the pros and the cons. I'm not looking for no action tonight, but just feedback is all.
Jake? So I agree with Mr. Penscover to a certain degree. I believe a longer term would allow the mayor more time to implement their vision without disruption. However, I would recommend keeping the term limits for aldermen at 2 years, since Wisconsin Rapids isn't a large city. I believe a 2-year term provides sufficient accountability and allows more regular feedback from residents. So I feel a balance between longer-term leadership for the mayor and shorter-term leadership for our city council members could help maintain stability and effective community involvement.
So Representative Kellogg, which was never here while I was here, but he had come up last year, I think it was, and maybe it was 2 years ago now. Time goes by so quick here. And he had recommended maybe having the mayor at a 3-year, so then it would switch every other term for council members. It seems like for the majority of cities like ours, the mayor comes out of the council, which is a good thing because it's different in here than it is looking at it online or thinking about what's going on. Or I mean, it's I had a lot of ideas, and once you're in this position, you know more, and I think it's a good thing. It happens mostly in cities like ours. So it would just switch. So one term would be the odds, the other term would be the evens. Otherwise, I'm fine with 4 years too. And I really do think it should be a longer term. Any mayor should have a longer term than 2 years. And I 100% agree with Ryan Austin. Mark it down on the calendar that 2 years for an alderperson is good. Not only because if for some reason the public does wake up and want to get rid of one of their aldermen, it's not that long of a time, but two, the requirements for being alderman are so low. I mean, 20 signatures, you can do that in less than an hour. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. And I'm fine I think it really should be changed, and we can make a motion to change. I'd just like other people's opinion.
So Patrick agreed with Austin. I 100% agree with Patrick. I think a 3-year term for a mayor would give them a little more time, and then also keep it so it's, alternates between the odd and even districts. So just wanted to make note that I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I've always thought the mayor's term should be 4 years. But yeah, I agree with Mr. Austin that alders should continue to be 2 years. That's what I would, but I definitely think that the mayor's term should be 4 years, and I agree with Mr. Penscover. It's not long enough to, 2 years is not long enough to complete your mission or your journey.
All right, I'll speak on this. I've thought about this for a long time. I've been a council member under 3 different mayors. Essentially, you're really up for election every 18 year and a half, 20 months at least, because you get your first year, and in that year that December you have to decide if you're going to run again, and you will have to accumulate 200 signatures to be on the April ballot. And I think the most important elected position in the city is the mayor. The continuity and the vision and whatever they bring and what the people vote for is the leader of the city. I think 4 years, I've always thought that was a little too long, because it was always a conversation of whether it should stay 2 or it should be 4. And these seats change so much, and we all hold a lot of power ourselves, but as far as the department heads and the running of the city, 2 years is a small amount of time, and they may need to adjust a lot, and the city vision can be constantly changing then. And I don't think that's, just speaking as a resident, and if I wasn't a representative up here, I don't think that would be what I would want from the elected leader of the city, is that they constantly feel like they have to keep running for election, and it makes it hard to do things that may be necessary but controversial. It's a really tough position to be in, but I think 3 years would be an appropriate term. I also think that if you look back on just the last 20 years of mayoral races, there's not a large amount of residents that come out and run for that position. Obviously, it's a big decision for them personally. I think one of the reasons it's a big decision is because they'd be leaving their career or whatever they're doing at the time to take on the public service of leading the city. And I think when you're looking at that for potentially only 2 years, people tend to more stay with, well, as much as they would want to do public service, they're probably better off for their family and themselves if they stick with what they're currently doing. So the mayor term, I think, should be extended. I don't have a problem with the alderman terms. I do want to say, from other discussion that's happened in the past, I think we're lucky to still have the mayoral position as the leader of the city. And I would never be in favor of having a city administrator. I've watched the neighboring communities that have went that route. I think it's ridiculous to have a city administrator and a mayor, or I believe Marshfield has that, if I'm not. Yeah, I think that's ridiculous, and I think having a city administrator, you see that where the board or the council is constantly firing them and then opening up the position, and that person isn't really from there anyways. So I'm appreciative that we do have someone that lives within our city limits that represents us, regardless of their beliefs and who they are. And I think that they should be, if they're able to win an election, they should be allowed the time to implement their vision, which is probably closer to 3 years rather than 2. And that's really where I'm at on it. I would be flexible to anything out of that. Go ahead.
This should be an easy one at council, and I agree with Katna. that 2 years is a deterrent, especially if you don't own your own business or can afford to take time away and then jump back into a career. So I am supportive of extending it to a 4-year term. Council members, in the words of Jay Bemke, if you're doing a good job, you collect your 20 signatures and you're on for 4 years anyways. But the council has a way to remove the mayor if need be. So that's always a backup. You don't have that opportunity with council members, so I think 2 years is fair. I would say that if we do this, that it would be implemented at the time of the next election, so that we make sure everyone who votes for our mayor knows that they're voting for them for a 4 or 3 year term, and that we don't implement it midway through.
I would be okay too if you put in there that, you know, if the current mayor gets reelected, he can stay on, the grandfathered in to stay on the 2-year term. And then after that mayor, then you could start, just so there's no nefariousness. I don't want anybody thinking I had anything to do with this. So, but from that perspective, I will say, you know, there's a lot of residents that have said to me over time, kind of like what you said, if they like 2 years because if you're a bad mayor, they can get rid of you right away. And if you're a good mayor, they'll vote you back in. So I kind of understand that. I also would, from the other side, two different perspectives. One, like Maddie said, it's not the easiest to kind of plan one, you know, your future unless you're retired, and that happens a lot where retired people run for mayor. But at the same time, coming from the inside perspective, from the employees, what I've learned to understand and talking to them and asking questions and just seeing how the interaction goes, you know, it's very disruptive for them too inside the city to kind of see, you know, how things are going every 2 years to figure out what the direction's going to be, how chaotic it's going to be or whatnot. So it's, you know, there's a learning curve there. But again, we've been doing it this way for so long. You know, it works, but I think for that long-term vision and stability, this is a big organization. Like, I think sometimes, you know, people don't fully understand what it means to be a mayor and to be the CEO of the city, 230-ish people, you know, $40 million budget. Like, it takes a lot to be able to do that, and we really do want somebody capable in the position to lead those, you know, the department heads who are, you know, fantastic in and of themselves, and all the employees that are doing their jobs every day. You know, but to bring some stability, I don't think is a bad thing. But I would rather it be after I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, so we're in February now. Like, this, changing this would not affect anything in this next election at all, no matter what we did, even if we changed the alderman. So it's for next year is what we're talking about. But I do think this would change a charter. It would be a charter ordinance. We'd need 6 of us to agree on whatever we're going to change it to. So I don't know if we really do want to send this to council, make a motion, send it to council, and then talk about it at council. I've heard 4s, I've heard 3s. I'm actually, either one is fine. It doesn't matter to me. But I do know that 2 years is, it actually hurts the residents of Wisconsin Rapids because the pool of viable candidates is pretty small. So, I really like the idea of it changing over alderman districts, but I also like the idea of 4 years too. So I'll let Ryan Austin make a motion, or Jake.
Well, I'm not going to make a motion. I'm not going to vote for 4 years, so
Well, I think we should just send a motion forward, and then we can hash it out at council. And I'll stick with my guns here on 4 years. So I'll make a motion to increase the mayor's term limit from 2 to 4 years.
I'll second.
We did have a hand up. Did you? Two hand? Okay.
Mike's already on. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this. When I refer to the Wisconsin statute, I believe it's 6423-5, for any city municipality over 15,000, both the mayor and alderpersons are technically considered to be a full-time position. Now, what I've heard tonight is that it takes a very long time to carry out a mayor's focus if they're doing something. I want to remind you, you meet once per month as a council. If you don't think you're getting things done fast enough, maybe you should have more than one council meeting per month. Now, Jeff, since you had introduced this, I don't mean to pick on you or draw you out, but as part of the Republican Party here in Wood County, for the last 8 years, the Republican Party of our nation has been trying to enforce term limits on our congressional nominees. Here in Wisconsin Rapids, we've had individuals that have served in office for 28 years. How many individuals from his district were not able to basically run for a city position because he basically had it for 28 years? Basically, what I've looked at is that 76% of Democrats want term limits. 89% of Republicans want term limits. 83% of independents want term limits. As a citizen of Wisconsin Rapids, term limits are in place every election. I actually believe as a citizen that every single year, every city position should be up for re-election. Leave it up to the people to determine whether or not you deserve your positions. If you can't make it past 1 year, the people speak. If you're doing your job, you will get reelected. Leave it up to the people. By literally extending any of your offices,
Tom.
you are taking the option away from the public.
Thank you. Mr. Rayon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom Riom. I am the guy that was on there a long time. This has come up, I don't know how many, I guess I should have researched back how many times this has been brought up to change. It has been a number of times. And it's been defeated each time. I would continue to go with the 2-year term for alderman. The sense in the 3-year term for mayor is that it would then offset on a 2-year term what aldermans are. So I would, if it changes, it should be an odd number. But I think what's being missed by people saying, I'm going in and it's 4, 5, 6, 7 months to get my feet on the ground. Well, I think somebody should have researched that before they ran to know what it all involved, so the feet were on the ground when they took over. They should have been at the meetings, seeing how this operates. Also, I think, is that who runs for an office, not just the mayor, all the persons, they have an agenda. They have an agenda. You can say what you want. You listen to the constituents, which is true, but you run because you have an agenda. You have something that you want to do. You don't just throw your name out there, hey, I want to be alderman. You might want to do it because you want to cut taxes. That's an agenda.
Thank you, Mr.
You
Rayon.
want to do it so you lengthen the terms. That's an agenda.
Yep.
Term limits. That's an agenda.
Thank you.
That's what people should be running on. And they should be ready to hit the ground when they get there.
Thank you.
When would that be effective?
The next election cycle for
Okay.
mayor.
So April of 2026.
Yep.
All right, motion by Austin, second by Delaney. All those in the affirmative?
Yes.
Aye.
And I am opposed. Motion passes 2-1. Item 5. I'm hoping this one will be a little more positive. Hopefully get some engagement. Discuss a referral from Alderperson Catnow to create or modify city ordinances regarding block parties and special events. So, the idea behind this was I couldn't find anything in our ordinances, unless I missed it, that we have around block parties. I know there's been requests from the community to do more of these, and I believe if we have a process in place, not only an ordinance, but a landing page on the website, it would encourage people to get together more with their neighbors, celebrate themselves, the city. This is common in a lot of other municipalities. I know that they've had them up in Point for informative purposes. The city themselves put on block parties. Obviously, in other cities around the state, they have them strictly available for neighbors that want to get together and have one. And these ordinances vary from municipality to municipality, but essentially it's what you would expect in the idea of a block party, and that that a street may be closed off. I'll just read one from the city of Waukesha. It says the block party applicant must reside in the same residential area of the proposed block party. You have to complete an application at the clerk's office 14 days prior. No more than 2 linear blocks of a street or residential district may be closed. A 15-foot path must be maintained at all times for accessibility of the emergency vehicles. They cannot take place Monday through Thursday except for holidays, and must be between the hours, or they can't take place between the hours of 10:30 p.m. and 9 a.m. Some other municipalities that I looked at when I put this referral in were Onalaska, La Crosse, Sheboygan. You can simply Google a city and their ordinance on block parties, and you can find it. I believe we should draft something similar to this. The consumption of alcohol is the one that varies from ordinance to ordinance. The one in Waukesha says that it prohibits the consumption of alcoholic beverages in city parking lots, on public streets and sidewalks. The alderperson may permit the consumption, possession of fermented malt beverages, wines, or intoxicating liquors at a residential block party within his or her aldermatic district, which I thought was well, here's why I thought that one was interesting, because I mean, these are our neighbors, right? That's why there's districts. Like, if we brought it to a council vote and the block party's over in Mr. Austin's neighborhood, I mean, why should my opinion matter when I'm representing the residents over in District 5? So my point is, there's a lot of different ordinances out there. I'm not picky about which one we could potentially go with. I just think we should have one. It's been a conversation that's come up. I'm sure a lot of you guys got calls about it last year. And I think it's something that could build community spirit, bring some positivity to the city, and we should give our residents the ability to do that. The other part of this was creating an ordinance for special events to create more community-driven events. I don't know if it's for lack of ordinance or application process, but if anyone just wanted to go and put together some type of community event, we don't have an existing ordinance or application that really allows them to do so by themselves. It's typically done by organizations such as the Heart of Wisconsin or others, and I think we should give that some of that ability back to the residences. And again, if this all doesn't apply to ordinances, then maybe it's something we need to make more available on the website. But I know I was not able to find a block party ordinance. So any thoughts or discussion around that? Go ahead.
So where I live, they used to have block parties, and the people there are very elderly. All my neighbors are very elderly, and they talk about back in the 70s, they used to have block parties where they had shut off the streets, the public works or police, I don't know who, they put up the barriers, and they had it every year. And it was a great thing, apparently, because they still talk about it now, 50 years later. So I'm all for community getting together and getting to know each other. Actually, the more of that happens, if you look, studies have shown that crime rates go down. It affects the city. It would affect the city so much with the more community engagement that happens and community building that happens. The lower the crime rates, healthier people are going to be. People are going to check in on their neighbors and they need help. It's a good thing, and I'm all for that. Also, we'd have less complaints about people not bringing in their garbage cans because they would know that Bob broke his leg last week, or they would know more about their neighbors. Which I'm not saying being nosy. I'm just saying get to know people and actually love other people, because that's kind of what we're called to do.
Certainly, I'm in agreement with everything you're talking about in terms of building community and getting people to spend more time with each other and trust each other and build those relationships and bridges. In your research, did you find, because the question's going to come up of like, okay, well, we can't shut down these roads, but then we make an ordinance that says we can't shut down any roads. So we're talking about shutting down certain roads. So what did you find in terms of how that decision-making process would go?
I do have that answer. I'll just speak from the mind because I can't quote it directly right now, but it's residential neighborhoods, so it excluded like arterial streets and other types of streets that would need to be accessed, frequently by traffic or emergency services. It's similar to the way it was described is like when we have a snow emergency, or the way the roads are constructed for emergency vehicles, like those arterial streets, as they're called, that those are not available for block parties or any highway or county highway, or so like, for example, 8th Street wouldn't be one. Actually, Chestnut technically wouldn't be one. Those are constructed wider for engineering reasons and emergency vehicle reasons. So yeah, it is in these ordinances that it not be allowed in those areas.
Yeah, I think if we can clearly define, what criteria are there for what we can close down, then it's important, and I think we should definitely look into figuring that out and passing a new ordinance or altering the one that exists. Thank you.
I get the importance of maybe having a clear define of what streets should be closed down, but could it be possible we make that, case by case, or it go through a determination factor whether it's going to have an impact? Because I just would hate to, like for example, when we close Grand Avenue Bridge, what you're talking about is essentially that could be considered a road that we couldn't close down, but we do that every year for the car show. So I think you might want to make it more flexible and do it case by case.
Yeah, I think we can consider that. At this point, my intent was to make a motion to direct the city attorney to create a city ordinance regarding block parties, referencing communities such as Onalaska, La Crosse, Sheboygan, and Waukesha. And then it would come back to legislative. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I again, another one of these, I'm not speaking against it. But I think you people up front should be directing, if you want to do this, what you want to do. Not saying to the city attorney to decide what she wants for a block party or which community to pick from. And I also think you should be talking to the police department on what has to be done. And also the public works department, as you're going to be, if streets are going to be closed, you're going to need blockers, all that stuff. And is there going to be a cost for the blockers? I'm not speaking against it. I just think if you want to do something, then say what you want to do. Then the mayor can follow through to write an ordinance to that. It's your recommendation, if that's what's to be. I want to know what your recommendation is. Not on Alaska, West Allis, this, pick and choose from here and there. You pick and choose from those of what you want to see. That's what it should, that's what it should be.
Okay,
And the
yeah.
mayor then can try to write something to that.
Well,
effect.
yeah, thank you, Tom. So that is common. What we do is reference other municipalities' ordinances. I could read through an entire ordinance and say that's what should be in there. But the goal at this point is to have a Wisconsin Rapids ordinance drafted, and based on these ordinances that are already written, which we commonly do, and then we bring it back to legislative and tweak it and make it our own. I went through many cities' block party ordinances, and these are the 4 that I thought would best fit our community.
Is this for private block parties? I'm assuming residential?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is, so one of the things I read earlier is that the block party applicant must reside in that residential area. So if someone wanted to come over to your house, but they didn't live in your neighborhood and throw a block party, that wouldn't be allowed.
And you said Onalaska, La Crosse, Sheboygan, and Waukesha?
Yeah, those are
Yep.
4 I found that had really well-written ordinances around this.
Okay.
And so at this point, I'll just confirm the motion to direct the city attorney to create a block party ordinance based on the cities in the referral.
So I hate to agree with Tom, as we all know, but it seems like you've already done a lot of this work, and why have it redone again by the city attorney if you've already done the work? If you wanted to come here, talk about if we think it's a good idea, which I agree with, I think it's a great idea, and I do think we should have more discussions like that, but then go back and say, okay, well, this is what we have for a plan. I mean, a lot of things you might bring up and we'd say, yeah, it's pretty dumb, and like it just dies. I think that's fine. Like there should be more of that. But it seems like you've done a lot of the work. So like, could you put something together and send it to her for approval? I mean, it seems like you've done a lot on this. Just doesn't make sense to me that it would be redone, because you picked out a lot of the good points. Maybe she would miss it. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess I'm just following practice of that the city attorney writes the draft ordinances and ordinances. If we wanted to stray from that, I certainly could draft the ordinance. However, I'm not an attorney.
So Madeline's done a lot of the work over here on our ordinances, and that's worked out really good. It saved us all a lot of time, I think. And she's put in the work. Hopefully she doesn't get burned out by doing what she's been doing. But I think it's needed. I think every single ordinance needs to go through. Actually, half of it should be thrown out, but that's in the building ordinances. I'm sorry, I'm done talking. I just want to know if you wanted to send that to her and then do that. I would approve that, but
Yeah, so the idea is for her to draft the ordinance and uniform with how all our other ordinances are written, so when it goes into the code. And then it comes back to legislative, and it's not just up to me. I mean, it would be up to first the legislative committee, then the council to, make the decisions on what's going to be in there. But I'm just following the practice of having the city attorney write the ordinance. I mean, I certainly could send her a draft, but that's been typically how we.
I understand that would be good. I also understand that if you want it done by this summer, you might want to take things in by the horns and get it done yourself and send it over to her, and then we can approve or disapprove or change or do whatever.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, she could be retired by the time anything gets done.
Sue, what's your preference? What's that? Well, I'm. So, do you have a preference? Well, I'm going to leave my motion as it stands.
I'll second the motion. I would also add, though, that I would not be in favor of any ordinance like this that would charge a fee unless we're talking about repetitive occurrences. So I would want to make that something that we would put in that ordinance is at least one to, I guess it depends on how many times we agree on, but one for sure, pro bono, so.
Okay. So motion by Catanaw, second by Austin. All those in the affirmative?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Item 6 is adjournment.
I'll second.
Motion by Austin, second by Delaney to adjourn. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Meeting adjourned at 8:08 p.m.